So we do have a lot to discuss. So in order not to waste any more time, I'd like to thank Dr. Mimi Darko of the African Medicines Agency for allocating time out of her very, very busy schedule. We've tried to do this before and we had to reschedule. Apologies to everyone for that. So without further ado, I would like to really thank Mimi for the opportunity for the African Vaccine Manufacturing Initiative members to interact with you. We were very happy that AMA is online, and we look forward to this discussion to understand where AMA is and what AMA is doing, and specifically go through the questions that some of our members put forward for you to discuss. So, Madam Director General of AMA, I'm not going to try and give your resume. I've known you for a long time. I'm very proud of you, our Ghanaian boss at the African Union latest agency. We know that you've done a lot for us in the African continent with regards to regulatory harmonization. Before you went to AMA, you did bring some of us together, to enable us understand how our regulatory agencies would work across boundaries. I'm not qualified to describe your qualifications in the area of regulatory work. I think that speaks for itself. So I'd like to thank your secretary, Eva, and my good friend, Prof. Alex Todu, for helping us put this together. In the background, we have our team from AVMI, Melissa and Kirsty, and of course, Farah and Simon, our vice co-chair, who will be giving the closing remarks at the end of the seminar. I'd like to really encourage our AVI members when we come to the rear slot where you want to say something to do so. But let's go ahead. Mimi, let's start by having you tell us a bit about what AMA is, what it's doing, and then we can take the questions that our members have for you. Over.
Thank you very much, William. And I'm glad that at least today we've been able to have this program. And I'll also say thank you to my secretariat for all the hard work in getting it started. So AMA has its main role, and we call it the objective of AMA, is to enhance the capacity of state parties. So state parties are those that have signed and ratified and deposited the instrument of the AMA Treaty to regulate medical products, to ensure that quality, safe, and efficacious medical products circulate on the continent, to ensure that people living in Africa can get access to those essential medical products that include also medical devices and other technologies. So AMA's role in here is to ensure that we can create that enabling environment for the objective of AMA to be achieved. And so one of AMA's main roles, as I said, is to strengthen the capacity of our NRAs and our RECs. And this is what we take very seriously, because I always say that an NRA without the requisite capacity will delay access to medicines. Mostly that is what happens. One of our clear rules is also to support the growth of the local pharmaceutical industry to ensure that what happened during COVID does not happen again, and this is one of the reasons that some of us were born out of Ebola and COVID, and we have the pharmaceutical manufacturing plan for Africa, and one of our rules is to ensure that we can achieve it, and also we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, and AMA has to play a critical role in ensuring that there will be products available, manufactured on the continent to be able to be traded in the pharmaceutical manufacturing Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And so AMA's clear role, and I always say this before I start anything, is that AMA is not here to replace any of the NRAs that exist. They have their independence, they have what we call national sovereignty, but AMA's role is to coordinate their effects in order to create an impact to the role that they play in their individual countries. So we do this by coordinating joint reviews, joint of product applications that will go to them, joint inspections, harmonized standards. And I like the word harmonized, but not everything can be harmonized, but as much as possible to harmonize. And key to this is you can harmonize, but if there's no reliance, then you can have harmonized standards, but everybody will still do the same thing. You have to go to 55 countries. So the idea is that we can promote reliance among the countries. We can promote reliance to AMA's joint review mechanism, and basically to ensure that this reliance, this harmonization results in products getting to everybody on the continent, most importantly, the patient, in good time and in real time. Post that, we are also going to ensure that once products get onto the continent, they are not just there, but we can monitor the quality and the safety of these products in real time using one common database. That means that safety decisions or regulatory decisions on safety can be taken much quicker, and regulatory decisions on quality can be taken much quicker, and it is seen across the continent. So in a nutshell, that is AMA's role to coordinate for greater impact to ensure quality, safe, and efficacious medical products on the continent. I think I've said enough. Otherwise, I would have answered the questions before you start answering them. Thank you, William. Thank you.
That was very clearly put. So, what is the expectation of the member states? I mean, I don't mean the regulators from the member states, but the member states, the ministers of health and the heads of state themselves. What is the expectation of AMA?
The expectation is that nobody would be. First of all, we expect that if a product is available in, let me call it a developed world, like happened during COVID, immediately with one review, they're probably not even thinking of the how, but they expect that in such instances, the product is also available in around the same time, not when 80% of the population has already received the product, or of the developed countries have received it. They expect that they can get access, and access has to do with time and has to do with cost as well. They can get access to those medicines, medical products, devices also on the continent. That is the main expectation. And that they can also keep their population safe, and they can react quicker to any safety issues. So for them, they believe that AMA should ensure quick access to or quick availability of innovator products onto their markets. They also expect that products will also be closer. That means that when borders are closed, like happened during COVID, there is a local manufacturer that can make those products available also. They want to ensure that the products are cheaper. Therefore, they've put in a pool procurement mechanism, but they want to also ensure that the quality of the products in that mechanism is also assured. So for them, AMA will make sure that they get products faster, the products are of the right quality, and in their individual countries, they can contribute to whether it's local manufacturing, whether it is whatever form that it will take. They expect, that is what their expectation is from AMA. They are also clearly expect that they will not have substandard and falsified medical products. That is a very big concern for our governments. And so what can AMA do to prevent substandard and falsified medicines? Or at least if they even end up, how can AMA help them to be able to identify them quickly and to be able to react faster? So from what I know, this is what our governments expect from AMA. Thank you.
Yes, maybe that was great, because I've come to realize that when we look at the continental perspective, we should, as talking about my group of manufacturers, our group of manufacturers, we should always have that in mind, the expectation of the governments, and how we as private sector can fulfill that expectation of the governments and the people. So before I go to the questions, Simon, you are vice chair today. You are vice chair, and you will be giving the closing remarks. Is there a specific issue that you would like to bring to Mimi's attention before I go to the set of questions? Over to you, Simon.
Well, thank you very much, Edie. I think everything is contained in the questions before you, but more importantly, I want to see how products that are developed in Africa will eventually go through the entire process of clinical trials and then registration. Because as it is now, that capacity does not exist on the continent. If you make a product in Africa, for example, it will be very difficult to go through the registration process and get it commercialized. So how do we handle that gap? Over.
So Simon, you want me to, William, do I answer this now or when we get to the questions?
I think you can answer it when we get to the question.
This question is asked quite a bit in the questions that were put, so maybe I can answer it when we get there. But that is a concern for all of us, so I'm looking forward to that.
Good. So as we go to the questions, there's mention, Prof. Alex mentioned your hub, the hub that you're setting up. Can you throw some light on these hubs? Because this is something that probably will also answer some of the questions that members have.
So I have two hubs. I'm not sure which one Alex mentioned to you, but they're both critical in the work of AMA. So the first one is the capacity strengthening hub. This hub, if you look at the object of AMA, it is to strengthen the capacity of NREs and RECs, of state parties in NREs and RECs, to ensure quality, safety, and efficacious medical products. So this hub, one of the main things, as I said, that AMA has to do, and I always say that sometimes delay in registration of a product is because of the insufficient capacity in the NREs sometimes. And so, and you know that WHO has this global benchmarking tool where it's assessing the capacity of NREs. And currently we have 9, what we call WHO maturity level 3 agencies on the continent out of the 18 in the world. 9 of them exist on the continent. So Africa is not devoid of capacity. We have the scientific capacity, we have the regulatory capacity, but we're building on that. And the idea is that we want to ensure that we have as many of them that are assessed to have that regulatory capacity, that are considered stable and well-functioning, that is maturity level 3, and even some of them to get to the point of being advanced, that is maturity level 4 with continuous improvement, and to have what we call WHO listed authorities. So for us, these NREs, as I said, AMA is not here to replace them. AMA is here to build their, to coordinate their work, and they will be acting as the scientific backbone for AMA. So capacity strengthening is very important to us. We are calling it a hub because AMA itself initially, at least for the first few years, is not going to be doing all the training itself, but it's going to engage with what we can call service providers, universities, academia, providers of some of these modules that can be used to build capacity, and we will coordinate that capacity on the continent. Already we had a meeting this year with all the NREs, all 55 of them were there. We looked at what capacities they have, what capacities they need, and what capacities they can also offer. And so we have all that already in a database, and we are going to be using this source of information to be able to strengthen those that need strengthening, even using those that already are on the continent before even going out. And we will have a clear strategy for capacity strengthening on the continent. The next hub that we have is the Regulatory Innovation and Manufacturing Readiness Hub. And that hub is purely Africa's, what we are calling Africa's front door to the needs of the regulator or the requirements of the regulator. And so it's going to be like a one-stop hub for early engagement. I always say that industry, the regulator does not know what industry is doing until industry tells it what it's doing. So if you have an innovation, you have a manufacturing procedure, you have a new manufacturing premises. If you don't come to the regulator and say, look, this is what I am doing, and what pathway do you think that it will take? And you wait till at the end when you have a dossier ready and you bring it in front of the regulator will take its sweet time to learn all about your innovation, to learn all about your premises, to learn everything that has to learn before it can go into the dossier. So this hub is actually what we are establishing key for local manufacturers as well. So come to us early, come to us with your products. If there's technology transfer, AMA will gather its experts on the continent to look at that application, give you early scientific advice, what regulatory pathway would be taken or would be used for your product, what reliance, et cetera, et cetera. So that hub for us is very key to ensure that the next time we do a continental listing, and the last time it was done, there was no local manufacturer that managed to get there. And so this hub is there to support local manufacturers and also to support innovation onto the continent, and also for early scientific advice for clinical development, clinical trials, or any clinical development on the continent. So that is the hub. Those are the two hubs that AMA has set up. Actually, the hubs are already set up, and those are the hubs that are operational at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mimi. So when we go to the questions, the first one was about regulatory harmonization, market authorization. I think you've touched on this a bit, and there was a question about whether you have a roadmap and whether you have timelines for achieving the harmonization at continental level.
So that's an interesting question. I'll attempt to answer the more difficult one is the timelines. But just to say that AMA is not starting from zero. I always say this because we've had the Africa Medicines Regulatory Harmonization that has been operational for at least a decade. And we also have the African Vaccines Regulatory Forum. So Africa Vaccines Regulatory Forum, that is AVREF, has been harmonizing clinical trials, that regulatory function, for the past probably 15 years, if I'm not wrong. And that initiative is now under the legal mandate of AMA. The African Medicines Regulatory Harmonization, which was last year, did the amazing feat of continentally listing, I think, about 12 products, is also operational. So AMA is building on those two. So we are not starting from scratch. We are also working with the RECs. As you know, the regional economic communities also have harmonization mechanisms or programs in place, and that do work sharing, information sharing. So AMA, fortunately for us, I would say that we are building on the solid foundations of the RECs, of African Vaccines Regulatory Forum, and of the Africa Medicines Regulatory Harmonization Initiative. And all those initiatives have already been transitioned into AMA. What AMA is currently doing is putting in the legal mechanisms. So unlike the initiatives, AMA is a legally mandated agency. So we are putting in the legal mechanisms to continue with what has been started. And we've already done that transition. What is important to me is that we have a network of all the heads of regulatory agencies. We have a network of all the mature agencies, and we have a network that we work with the RECs in. And therefore, basically, we have started. And the timelines, I will not promise timelines, but at least you can tell that we are going in the right direction. And once we've been able to do a continental listing just through a program, then doing it through an institutional, legally mandated agency will not be a problem. Our ambition, and since we are moving in the right direction, is to be able to say we can have one application, we can have one scientific review that is of the high quality, and the product will be available to multiple markets. And that is where our capacity strengthening comes in, and that is where our early engagement comes in. But with harmonization, we've already started, and we are moving in the direction of ensuring that we can get there. Don't also forget that AMA is a treaty-mandated organization. Currently, we have 33 countries or state parties, so that countries that have signed and ratified the treaty. We have another 22 left. So for full harmonization to be achieved, and for access to 55 markets, we would need those 22 to also sign and ratify the treaty, so we can work with everybody and not just with the few that have signed and ratified the treaty. So I would say we're in the right direction, and ambition is that one application, one review, and multiple markets. Thank you. I hope I've answered it quite well.
Yes, yes. I at least understand your answer in relation to the question which talked about accelerated market authorization. You've mentioned multiple, market, and that I think is quite important. So if colleagues from Genex, Afrivax, Aspen, IPD, Uganda, Vaccine Access, if they have need for further clarification, we can do that by email exchanges. Now, the other question that followed on was about the relationship of AMA with the national regulatory authorities and regulatory alliance. I think you've mentioned this, and manufacturers want clarity on how reliance would reduce the need for repeated assessments where a product has already gone reviewed by a recognized NRA. I think you've described the mechanisms that would achieve this.
If I repeat it so that it is never mistakenly understood in the wrong way, I always say that AMA is not built to replace any NRA. The independence in regulatory decision making is very important. Okay, the NRAs, the individual NRAs, are part of AMA's or Africa's regulatory system, and so our model is coordination. AMA is using what we call the advanced or mature NRAs, which is those that have been assessed to be maturity level 3. But as well, if there are any experts in NRAs that have expertise in certain functions, we will also use them. And those AMA's architectural structure, as determined by its treaty, is that you have the African Medicines Agency, then you have the technical committees. And for each regulatory function, there is a technical committee. So you have one for evaluation of medical products, you have one for GMP inspections, you have one for laboratory, you have one for safe pharmacovigilance. And so in working with these networks and with our scientific backbones, we are able to review an application together under the umbrella of AMA. And once that application has been reviewed, the recommendation or the scientific opinion from that review then goes to the individual countries. And looking at the continental listing that was done, we did under the umbrella of the AMRH program, we were able to cut short the time to access or to products being approved by almost 1 to 2 years per each country. And we can only get better with that by ensuring that the capacity is strengthened, by ensuring that the trust is built. If AMA goes out to say we are taking over the work of NRAs, we cannot actually do that. We need to strengthen the technical committees. We need to build the trust so that after that scientific opinion is given, when the recommendation goes to the countries, the uptake is also faster. Reliance, we need to understand, or harmonization does not mean you blindly accept the decision of another agency, whether that is AMA or whether that is a sister agency. The idea of reliance is that you make an informed decision based on the work that someone else has done, and that decision can be done quicker, knowing the strength of that decision, the scientific review that went into it, the trust that you have in that decision that was made. And that is what AMA has to keep on doing to ensure that it can become the trusted quality assurance reference point for Africa. So we will improve what the AMRH did, ensure that assessments of high quality, and even find out from the lessons that we learned to see that what were the gaps, what happened, why did it take maybe 6 months or 4 months for a country to take up the decision of a continental review, and then we will build on that and see how we can make it better. But even from the joint listing, the reviews were done within 6 months. That is the assessment, and the uptake, some of it was within 2 months, some of it 3 months, and I think the maximum was about 6 months, if I'm not wrong. So we are going to find out all the lessons that were learned, what were the challenges, and ensure that we can do that better. So recognition or reliance is based on trust and it is based on the quality of the reviews, and we'll ensure that we can do that. Thank you.
The next question talks about GMP inspections, certifications, quality control, vaccine lot release. I think you may have touched on this in the answer that you just gave. Again, there's a reference to a roadmap. But there's a specific question here on continental recognized GMP inspection and certification. Did you have something like that in mind?
So this is for me. I mean, from where I came from, I know that probably one of the most expensive activities that a manufacturer has to endure is a GMP inspection. Is a disruption to manufacturing, processes, getting ready for the inspection, etc., etc. So what AMA is trying to do, and that is what the AMRE started, is to ensure that there's unnecessary duplication that can impose a cost on the manufacturers and as well on the regulators, because the regulators spend resources to go and do the inspection, whether it is human resource. Even though the inspection is paid for, you have to take people to do the inspection. So the idea is that our direction is that we can ensure, first of all, common standards and then coordinate inspections. And that was done during the continental listing. The GMP technical committee actually did most of the inspections, unless they relied on an inspection that had been done. And it was that inspection report that was taken up by countries. And so if countries have those common standard or data sets, then the reliance on a GMP inspection done by the technical committee involving as many of the NRAs as possible, therefore it's just one inspection, the outcome is then accepted by any other country that the application goes to. And that was seen in the continental listing. Inspections were not repeated, unless I am wrong. And that is what AMA is going to ensure that we try and better, so that, the science is the same, the skills are the same, and they are trusted and recognized by the individual NRAs. As to whether the fees will have to be paid, that I cannot talk about that at individual country levels. Those are resources that we need. So we may ask you to still pay the fees, and because those fees also enable us to do some post authorization, monitoring, etc. after the work has been done. So thank you.
Okay, so following on from that was a question on AMA and WHO PQ. How will you collaborate with the WHO PQ program, the harmonization, the assessments, and whether increased regulatory harmonization would reduce duplication between Africa and the international requirements?
So I get this question all the time, William. So AMA and WHO PQ are not competing. What AMA does and what WHO PQ are complementary and not competing roles. And that is what I like to say. WHO PQ will always remain critically important, particularly for products that are intended for international procurement. At the same time, we also believe that Africa should build the regulatory systems that are also capable of, and that is what I've been talking about, of generating high quality assessments, inspection reports, which is what PQ does, that the international partners of today can rely on. So that if it is a Gavi, if it is a global fund, AMA gets to that point where they can recognize the inspection done by AMA. I'm aware and that WHO PQ inspectors, almost 70% are from Africa. So I always say that the capacity exists. It is the coordination and using that capacity for the benefit of Africa. And that is one of the things that AMA will do. We will get to be very clear, currently an AMA assessment will not automatically be equal to a PQ at this very early stage. But that recognition, we are hoping that very soon, when an assessment is done by the AMA, even WHO PQ can then say that, look, if AMA has done it, it is a step up, and therefore we will also rely on that assessment. In the same way, if AMA has to do an assessment for a product that is needed on the continent, and WHO has done, I mean, with its team of assessors, has done it, AMA will also rely on it in the same way that WHO relies on the EU, on EMA or FDA. AMA also has the MOUs with those agencies and those bodies to also rely on their reviews to be able to take a decision. What I know is that the pool procurement mechanism that is in place for the continent is going to rely on AMA's assessments. So products that are meant for the continent, we are almost getting to the point where, or that is the what we expect, that those products will rely on an assessment done by AMA with its scientific base that, as I explained to you, is very strong to be able to take a decision on what to be procured through the pool procurement mechanism. So long-term opportunity, we hope that we are working to the point where an African manufacturer does not have to navigate two completely different systems, that is WHO PQ and AMA, but will be able to navigate one system that is relying on each other to be able to get products to reach Africa, or whether it is for the international market as well. So that is what we are working towards. But WHO is there and is important for standards and norms that we will all use. And we even have a joint framework with WHO. We signed an MOU with them on how we are going to work towards achieving all that I've described. So we will get there, and we are working towards getting there.
There was an additional question on how early should African manufacturers engage with AMA?
As soon as you have an idea, engage with AMA. I talked about our Regulatory Innovation and Manufacturing Readiness Hub. Engage with us anytime that you have an idea, because for regulators, we would like to work through the process with you. And that this goes for AMA and it goes for national regulators as well. We would like to work through the process with you. So early engagement is early engagement. As soon as you have any doubts as to what pathway your product is going to go through, AMA's doors are open. Please engage with us. What we do is that we bring together the NRAs that are strong in that area, and we sit down in one meeting and give you the direction that you need. So you can engage with AMA at any time that you need or require that engagement. But we are open right from, if you have a product that you're now developing, right from the beginning. For clinical trials, we're asking that, from your animal studies, even how to design your trials, engage with us. So for us, you can engage with us at any time. We will give you an opinion, we'll give you, that is up to you to whether take or not to take. So you can engage at any time.
So specifically for vaccine manufacturing facility development, what support or what role AMA provide or envisage to provide during a vaccine manufacturers starting to develop such a facility? The specifications, design, fill finish, etc. Or what can our manufacturers expect?
Okay, so normally, and I say this very carefully, is that AMA, as with every national NRA, is we will provide regulatory guidance and the technical support that you need for your facility. What are the facility design, et cetera, if it's a fill and finish, how to get you ready for the regulator. That is what we would provide. We always say that the regulator should not be the one who designs the plants. That is really up to the manufacturer. If we decide that we are designing the plant for you, then if there's a challenge, it falls on the regulator. But the regulator can guide you, but you remain responsible for the design. So our Regulatory Innovation and Manufacturing Readiness Hub will allow you to understand what the regulator will look out for, and then guide you into how you will design your plant. So if I'm come to do a GMP inspection, I look at the flow, I look at material entry, I look at all those things. If you engage with us, you know exactly what to expect from the regulator, and that goes into your design of your factory. So I would say come early. We always say engage early. But we will not tell you to put this room here or that room here, but we'll tell you what to expect from the regulator so that you can be ready to manufacture. That's why we call it the innovation and manufacturing readiness. So it is basically to help you understand what our expectations are and to help you understand it early on so that you can design your plant in such a way that, the flow is good, the quality systems, does the regulator expect validation, during an inspection, what would the regulator be looking out for? That will just assist you. So the earlier, obviously, you do this, the better it is for you, rather than to put up a plant and put it up the wrong way. But we will not dictate what actually goes into the plant, but we will ensure that we give you all the information to ensure you can design a plant that will be ready to manufacture and will be suitable to the regulators' expectations. I hope I've answered that well. I'm trying to be very political here.
I think that I'm not an expert, but that sounded okay to me politically. So the next question came from GenVac Egypt, specifically about stability data and shelf life requirements. What's your approach to this for stability data and shelf life requirements? I assume this is for all products, including vaccines.
So for stability, normally it should be, we've got to the point where we know that there should be some flexibility in the stability requirements. So I think the question was asking that if a manufacturer submits accelerated stability, is it suitable for a certain time while the real time goes on? It's for me, I think regulators will consider the totality of whatever evidence that you have available at the time. So let me give an example. We will consider reliance-based approach for stability requirements. So accelerated data with whatever real-time data is available will be considered. And then the remaining shelf life studies or stability can be submitted later. But we will caution that depending on which zone you're manufacturing for, your real-time stability data should cover all the zones. So if you're manufacturing for zone 4A, zone 4B, which is usually the most difficult, 3, 4A, and 4B, your real-time should cover them. So do not do accelerated for 6 months and expect that will be extrapolated to a 4-year shelf life for a zone 4B. You would have to follow up with those real-time stability study requirements, humidity, and temperature. So where it is justified, depending on your data, the initial shelf life will be supported by whatever data you have, while we wait for the longer term stability studies to continue. And with us having harmonized standards and common standards, we know that this will be something that will be considered for most of the NRAs, and these are some of the discussions that we are having scientifically with them. But the science is important. For vaccines and biologicals, the difference will be that it will be a product-specific requirement. It will not be a general like you have with the smaller molecules, because stability is sensitive depending on the formulation, depending on the process, depending on the storage conditions and the presentation. So yes, the standards will be harmonized, the scientific principles will be harmonized, but for vaccines and biologicals, it will be it has to be appropriate to product-specific regulatory evaluation or judgment. But generally, yes, that will be acceptable. But as you mentioned, vaccines and biologicals, it has to be product-specific. So it will be a one-on-one or case-by-case. Thank you.
Good. Let me jump to the question from Aspen on localization and regulatory definitions. They're asking that from a regulatory perspective, how will localization be defined? Are there specific product categories that will be considered for purposes of defining locally manufactured products?
Well, AMA is a regulator, so AMA does not decide what is considered local. I mean, locally manufactured, our governments use them, our procurement people use them, industry uses them, but from a regulatory perspective, of locally manufactured as the site where the activity that is taking place at a site where the manufacturer is responsible for the quality of the products. So if it is fill and finish, it is still considered locally manufactured because you are responsible for the end product, the quality of the end product. There's a difference between packaging, fill, finish, whether you manufacture the formulation, or whether it is end to end. For us as regulators, our role is to ensure that there is how those activities are regulated, and we will work with the continental institutions on the broader definition of locally manufactured. But for us, if the product is finished in Africa, whatever happens on this continent, that is what the regulator will call locally manufactured, because they're different from, even packaging is sometimes considered manufacturing, but you are responsible for the quality of what you package. So for us, locally manufactured, it cannot mean, I keep mentioning quality because local manufacturing cannot mean a different standard or a different quality or different efficacy. It has to be, no matter what you do, the quality of the product resides with whoever is manufacturing that stage of manufacture. And that is what, as regulators, we are responsible for. So whatever comes into you, whatever you fill and finish, you are responsible for the quality of what was manufactured on your premises. I'm not sure whether packaging is locally manufactured, but even the packaging, even no, that is fill finish. So no, I'm not sure about packaging, but even with fill finish, it is considered a stage of manufacturing, and therefore you are responsible for that quality. And that is what we as regulators will look at. What came in, what were the processes, how was it filled, how was it finished, how was the quality ascertained at the end of it? And that is what is important to us. But I think that is a broader conversation that we will have to also buy into. Thank you.
I suspect that will be an important question because of the African procurement mechanism, where we're looking at encouraging African governments to buy locally manufactured products. So I guess this is something that we need to discuss further. There was a specific question on clinical development and multi-country clinical trials, whether AMA plans to harmonize the regulatory ethics approval processes for multi-country clinical trials for vaccines and biologics while maintaining the standards of participant safety and scientific integrity.
I think this is probably one of the areas where we are very well advanced because of the existence of the African Vaccines Regulatory Forum that has been doing joint reviews for about 10 years. And that's whose activity now resides, as a regulatory activity now resides with AMA. And there are clear harmonized guidelines that we call they are going to be the guidelines that AMA is going to adopt, where for clinical trials, I think we've gone quite a long way with that. And so AMA is going to build on that foundation of AVREF to strengthen those reviews. The issues that we've had with AVREF, and I've chaired AVREF, I think I'm still the chair of AVREF, have been with timelines, not so much with requirements. And we have a technical committee for clinical trials. We have experts in clinical trials. We have countries that are over maturity level 3 and almost maturity level 4 for clinical trials. So that's in that regulatory space. I think we've gone quite a way ahead. The problem or the challenges that we have, or that countries have, and that probably AMA is looking at with Africa CDC and some institutions, is that for most countries, we've gone ahead where you can submit to the regulator and to ethics at the same time. So there's a parallel review. What we are looking at now with Africa CDC and some other institutions is where we can actually have one review, both the regulatory and the ethics together. That questions will be discussed together, implications on regulatory, implications on quality of the products as pertains to ethics, etc. It can be discussed under one umbrella. And for that coordinated pathway, so that it is not two disconnected systems, we think it can shorten timelines. We think that it will make better use of the scarce resources that both regulatory and ethics have. And during COVID, we managed to do that. And in this Ebola outbreak or emergency, we have coordinated a review with one of the countries where they've looked at a clinical trial with ethics and regulatory working together in one space and coming up with a decision on a trial. So we are working very closely with Africa CDC and with some of our partners on ensuring that we can perfect this so that we don't have two different I mean, there will be different institutions and they have different work to do, but at least with the review of a clinical trial for speed and for efficiency, we're looking at seeing how we can do this together, not just in emergencies, but also as much as possible in regular reviews. So we're looking at that. But for me, what I would always, I have always said is that we also need to get to the point where Africa is not always doing phase 3 reviews or phase 3 trials. We are looking at how Africa can take place in early phase trials, and we've had a phase 1 that we're looking at. And I know we did one for phase 1 and phase 2, if I'm not wrong. But we're looking at Africa developing its scientific base, its regulatory base, its research institutions, so that we can take place and be contributors to, I don't know what I say. I always say we can contribute to drug development and not just be a recipient when all the important parts of the cycle, development life cycle have taken place. So, yep, William, I think I've answered the question.
Okay, so as a follow-up, so the new Ebola Budumbunyo strain vaccine trial that's taking place, I think it's a phase 1 in the UK. Where was AMA consulted, because eventually that vaccine is supposed to be deployed in Africa.
So we actually worked with the UK and with the country that is going to do the next phase, which was Uganda. So we actually had the emergency team, or our emergency assessment team that we used during this emergency, look at that review with the country that was going to do the next stage. And we had the UK also as a reference agency to support that review. So yes, we were involved, and with a partner that was coordinating this. So it's Oxford University, I think Uganda, and AMA. Yes, so we are very, very much involved in that. And Uganda did an amazing job because they had ethics and regulatory and their science institution in one room together that looked at the vaccine, looked at all the questions, and immediately sent under the umbrella of AMA. And AMA, with its experts from its mature NRAs, then joined that review and did what we call an assisted review. And the questions were sent to the sponsor. And I think that we should be almost there to start the trial very soon if we haven't started.
That's I think good, because one criticism, or not a criticism, sorry, a challenge that we have faced is whenever these outbreaks have surfaced, Africa's inability to have a countermeasure, a medical countermeasure readily available. I think these are very important steps that AMA is taking, and we as vaccine manufacturers and developers are glad to recognize that AMA is indeed, capable, developing its capacity, and is there to work with us. Maybe the last question that I will pose to you from the list was one from IPV, because it more or less summarizes, looks at the implementation and sustainability of the continental regulatory harmonization. What are the key milestones and timelines for implementing AMA's continental regulatory harmonization strategy? And how will the strategy be funded and sustained? The funding and how you will be sustained, is that something that you are comfortable with? Over.
William, not comfortable with funding. Everybody needs more money when they can get it. So I'm not sure about that. But AMA's priority is to ensure that AMA, unlike any of the other programs that have preceded us, like the AMRH and maybe AVRF, AMA is an institution. AMA is a mandated continental regulatory agency. And therefore, we are making harmonization. Harmonization has to be operationalized, not just an aspiration. We'll try it and see whether it works. We are obliged to ensure that whatever we're set up to do, which is coordinate and ensure this access through harmonization and reliance has to happen. So if you look in the AMA Treaty, it includes establishing what we call AMA's technical committees. And these technical committees are actually part of our architecture, and they are approved by our board and our conference of state parties. And these committees are the expert working groups that will coordinate the work, will look at the review finally, and to ensure that we have a right assessment done. It's made up of experts from all over the continent. We have actually launched an expression of interest already. We will, by the end of this month, actually launch into the interview process to select the technical committees. And there's one for every regulatory function. Some of them will be permanent, some of them would be ad hoc as is needed. We also have a network of African Reliance laboratories that is part of what will look at cases or look at continental sampling of substandard and falsified medicines and test them in these network of expert labs. And we do have them on the continent. We have labs that are pre-qualified, labs that can do lot release, labs that are ISO accredited, and we have them almost in every region on the continent. And so these labs are going to support the work of AMA's operations. We are looking at the common procedures that I talked about, the reliance mechanism, ensuring that every country has a reliance guideline and a reliance mechanism, so that when AMA makes an opinion or delivers a scientific opinion, if you don't have the requirements in there, you don't have the proper legal documents, you cannot rely on it. So we're looking at ensuring that all the countries, all the state parties have that in place. I talked about regulatory capacity, but the most important thing is our digital infrastructure. And we have a digital strategy that has been put to all the countries. All the countries have bought into the strategy. They've made comments into the strategy, and that strategy is being rolled out because that is the way we can communicate effectively with all our state parties and all our NRAs. Announcing a date when it will be complete, that is, I cannot, I'll be careful about doing that. But as I said from the beginning, we are in a process and we are in the right direction. We have an agency-wide strategy that also has been there's been input from all the countries, not whether they are state party or not. And that strategy is also being rolled out. Harmonization is not a one-day achievement. It is progressive. And some of the functions may harmonize quicker than others. Some of them may be a little bit slower, but at the end of the day, we're moving in that direction to ensure that it's done. To do with financing, well, at some point, we have our fee structure. AMA has to rely on its fees for the services that it renders. So that if you look at Europe, when Europe started, they started gradually, but they got to the point where now they self-fund more than 80% of their activities. That is where AMA wants to get to. I said earlier that we did a continental listing that was funded by a partner, but we will not do another one until we have a proper fee, and that fee is being costed. And I think some of the stakeholders if they have not been engaged, but I think some have been engaged, will be engaged to look at our fee structure to ensure that we can continue to deliver our services and not start and stop. We also have state party contributions. So every state party has a contribution that they're supposed to give towards the operations of AMA. And that is also being, we have an envoy who's ensuring that the state parties make their contributions. So our fees are state party contributions. And of course, we will always rely on our partners for the gaps, to be able to fill in the gaps that occur after this has happened. I talked about universal ratification, and there are 55 member states, and we need all of them on board to ensure that the impact of AMA is felt, to ensure that we have as much of the contributions that we can, to ensure that when we do, when we harmonize, it is felt in all 55 and not just in the 33 that we currently have. And to ensure that if a manufacturer manufactures in Nigeria or in Ethiopia, that product, when it is reviewed by AMA, can reach all the 55 state parties or member states. So with the manufacturers here, they can add their voice to ensuring universal ratification, because it is also good for them that a product that is full procured can be from any manufacturer on the continent and can reach any patient on the continent. And so I think with financing, our fees, state party contributions, and partner support is the way we're going to do it. But it will take a while to get there, but we're working towards getting there. So I think that's what I can say for now.
Thank you very much, Mimi. I think we've covered areas of duplicate GMP inspections, regulatory reviews, market authorization across multiple countries, practical application of the regulatory alliance, stability data, shelf life, early regulatory engagement with African manufacturers. Those were the areas of interest. So, Simon, we're out of time, but to conclude, any remarks from you? But Mimi, do you have any specific questions for us, African vaccine manufacturers? You could send them to us by email, and we will take the engagement forward. We look forward to doing a workshop with you. We'll work out the details later, but that's something that we're hoping to take forward. Simon, concluding remarks.
Can I just make one point?
Okay.
Just one point before Simon comes in. With all that I've described that AMA is trying to do to ensure that we can support patients and we can support manufacturers, what AMA asks is that when this is institutionalized, when this is perfected, when AMA does a review, which should reach 55 state parties or 55 countries where the patients need them, the manufacturers as well will, in good faith, ensure that it is not only a commercial decision, and that a state party that contributed to the work that AMA does also gets the vaccines or the medical products that it needs because it was done under an AMA review. So it is a two-way thing. We will do what we can to harmonize. We'll do what we can to make it easier, avoid duplication, but we want to also ensure that those products reach every single patient on the continent that was part of the process that AMA used. So that is what I want to say to the manufacturers here. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Edie. Wow, this is amazing. Colleagues, Dr. Darko, you will all agree with me that the AU Search Committee did a great job, to have her as the Director General of AMA. So I think she deserves an applause from AVMI members. So on behalf of AVMI, vaccine manufacturers on the continent, I would like to sincerely thank the AMA for this very insightful and timely engagement. As Africa expands its vaccine manufacturing capacity, a strong, predictable, and harmonized regulatory environment will be critical to our success. Manufacturing vaccines in Africa will have limited impact if regulatory fragmentation delays development, approval, and access to African markets. today's discussion has reinforced the importance of early and continuous engagement between manufacturers and regulators. We particularly welcome AMA's role in advancing regulatory harmonization, reliance mechanisms, and joint scientific assessments across the continent. Going forward, we hope to strengthen partnership between AMA and AVMI, including creating regular opportunities for manufacturer and regulators to engage on practical challenges through our product development, which we didn't have time to discuss, technology transfer, manufacturing, and market authorization. So our shared objective is clear: safe, effective, and high-quality vaccines developed and manufactured in Africa, reaching Africans when they need them. So thank you to AMA, our speaker, Dr. Mimi. Like I said, AU did a great job for recruiting her. AVMI members, I saw virtually all the members represented here, and everyone who participated in today's discussion. So thank you very much. Over.
Thank you very much, Simon. Dr. Magdi, would you like to say something on behalf of the manufacturers? Dr. Magdi, I see you are online. I'm not getting Dr. Magdi. Okay, how about David Kluche from Ghana? Are you online? Would you like to say something on behalf of the manufacturers? Oh, I was hoping to get one of our manufacturers. It looks as if they are all muted. Yes.
Sorry, David.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you very much, AVMI, for putting this together. On behalf of the manufacturers, we would like to thank Dr. Delese Darko for such an insightful presentation. We have all been very well updated and guided accordingly. So on behalf of all the manufacturers, we would just like to thank you for this, and we look forward to the next session. So thank you very much.
Very good. Mimi, Yedawasi, thank you so much, and we will be in touch how we can take the engagements with AMA forward. Thank you so much, Melissa and the Secretariat. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.